Welcome to Stetson Law Live. Your host today, Assistant Director for Career Development, Joann Grages Burnett. And her guests, Professor of Law, Ellen S. Podgor. And Director of Academic Success, Jeffrey J. Minneti. On today's show, Getting Ready for Law School. And now here's your host, Joann Grages Burnett.
Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar where we're going to have a wonderful discussion about things that you can do to get ready for law school. My name is Joann Grages Burnett, and I am one of the assistant directors in our career development office. I'm also an incredibly proud alumna of the College of Law, and I'm honored today to be the host and moderator for today's webinar with Professor Ellen Podgor and Professor Jeff Minneti. And in just a second, I'm going to ask them to tell us a little bit more about themselves. But first, I want to remind you out there, please feel free to ask your questions. We look forward to a lively discussion today. I have a few questions to start us off, but then we really want to hear from you, and we want to hear what your thoughts are and questions about getting ready for law school. I want to tell you a little bit about the Office of Career Development. We provide essentially a curriculum for you to help you get ready for your career after law school, and called our Career Development Toolkit. We also offer individual and group appointments to help you build a personal strategy for your career. We offer programming throughout this semester, online career development portal called Simplicity, resume and cover letter review, on-campus recruiting, practice interviews, and so much more. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the webinar, but now I want to turn it over to our professors, and I want you to learn a little bit more about them. Professor Podgor, if you could begin and tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, education, and then some of the areas that you work on around campus.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here, and welcome to everybody. I look forward to seeing you all in my criminal law class in the fall semester. I'll have about 1/3 of you in that class, and it's a lot of fun. I go back a good ways in that I went to Syracuse undergraduate. I have a degree from Indianapolis for my first law degree. My second law degree is from Temple University School of Law. I also have an MBA from University of Chicago. So I'm overeducated, not all that bright, but a lot of fun. And I teach in the areas of criminal law, but my real area that I do a lot of writing in is white-collar crime, which is sort of that business side of things, but also the criminal side of things. I do international criminal law. I've run our Supreme Court advocacy clinic that we have here. And so I'm also, I help with some of the student teams in the advocacy center. So everybody sort of pitches in, and we're all involved in a lot here at Stetson. It's a close community.
Indeed. Professor Minneti.
Yes. So I am privileged to direct the Office of Academic Success at the College of Law. And what that means is my job is to help you be successful in this environment. There's a lot that goes into the transition from an undergraduate educational institution or other graduate schools and then transitioning into law school. So the office is there to help facilitate that transition for you. And then should you encounter difficulty along the way as you're getting into your classes, or with that first set of exams, or even in the second semester of law school and beyond, our office stands ready to partner with you and help you accomplish the academic success you set out to accomplish when you enrolled at the College of Law. Associated with my office is also bar preparation services. So I work closely with a team of attorneys to help make sure that not only do you do well in law school, but that you pass that bar exam on the first attempt. In addition to all that, I get to teach a couple of courses here. So I teach Trust and Estates and Remedies, and those courses are designed to help students do well, not just in law school, but also on that bar exam.
Wonderful. And tell us a little bit about where you're from.
Of course, thank you. So I am a second career lawyer. I began my career teaching elementary school. So I'm an educator by training. I went to the University of South Florida. Received my law degree after teaching elementary school for about 5 years from Cumberland School of Law in Birmingham, Alabama. Following that, I did a stint with the Supreme Court of Alabama as a law clerk, and then worked for a firm and made my way to Stetson.
And we're glad to have you both.
Thank you.
So the first question I will ask to sort of start things off is, as an incoming student, what should folks listening do now, between now and August, to help prepare themselves for law school? And Professor Podgor, we'll start with you.
Well, actually, I think the best thing you can do is to take a vacation. I know that sounds crazy, but the first semester of law school can be a very difficult and trying period of time. You're going to do a lot of reading, and it's a lot of thinking. And being prepared for that, sometimes taking a good vacation, going to the beach, reading a few novels is just a wonderful thing to do before you get started.
Wonderful. Professor Minneti?
I agree that a break is really important given the demands of law school, but I would also suggest that you pay close attention to the orientation program. Here at Stetson, that actually begins as early as June. We'll provide steps to orientation for you where you'll get information to begin the transition of law school incrementally, one step at a time across the summer. So pay attention to the information that you receive from my office about orientation. Take those things on. Maybe take some of that reading on the vacation that you're thinking about, but we'll provide some good resources for you. And students often ask, what can I do now before June? And I'll tell you that the big thing that you can focus on is critical reading. As you're even preparing for your final exams, if you're in your last semester of undergrad this semester, think about critical reading. And by that I mean pay close attention to the writer's premise. Question what the writer has to say. Put it up on a pedestal if you have to and examine it from multiple perspectives. That kind of critical reading is essential to the law school environment, and training yourself to get good at that now, I think will really reap dividends for you in the fall.
Wonderful. Professor Minneti, I also want you to talk a little bit more about the Academic Success Program, but also we received some exciting news the other day, and I'd like for you to share that with our audience as well.
I am honored to share this news on behalf of the College of Law, frankly, because our bar pass results came out on April 14th, Monday. And I got to tell you, it was just a terrific day in our office. If I could indulge in a story.
Please.
Just briefly.
Please.
So the results come out about 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. And it's a wonderful day for us because we know the results are out because our phones start ringing. We receive call after call after call from graduates wanting to share their success with us. And then about mid-morning, around 11 o'clock or so, we get word from the Florida Bar about how the College of Law performed as a whole. And this particular Monday was a lot like last September when we got the July results, and that is we were #1 in the state again. Not only that, but we were consistently ahead of the state average for bar exam passage now for several administrations in a row. We've established just a terrific record of bar passage. And like I said, that's a culmination of lots of folks' efforts. The faculty and staff here at the College of Law are so committed to our students' success. And of course, those graduates, they work hard.
Absolutely. It was a great day all over campus.
Certainly
the entire
was.
campus was excited.
Yes.
And we're all very, very proud of our graduates indeed. Professor Podgor, if I could talk to you now, can you talk a little bit about the Socratic Method? I know a lot of students coming into law school hear a lot about the Socratic Method. Can you talk about how you utilize it in your classroom and maybe a little bit of the history of it?
Sure. The Socratic Method goes all the way back. Historically, it was the way law school was taught in the early days. And it's a question and answering type of an approach. The professor asks questions and the students answer. Instead of us just giving you the information, we sort of try to bring the information out from you. Nobody here that I know of uses what we call the strict Socratic method, which might be a method that sort of intimidates people or puts people down. That's not the Stetson style. Stetson, some of us do use the Socratic method. I do, for example. I use what I call a modified Socratic method, where I question students to try to bring out the information, but I'm not trying to intimidate anybody, and I certainly am not trying to make it a demeaning sort of an atmosphere. I want the students to learn, and the reason why we do this is because you need to get into the habit of asking questions. When a client walks in your office, you're a problem solver. And you need to know what questions you're going to ask that client. And so this is the first step in the process of learning that methodology.
And I can tell you, when I was a student here at Stetson, I always felt challenged in class, but never, it was always a very supportive environment, and surely there was never any humiliation. But you know that you had to work hard, and you had to be ready to answer those questions. Thank you very much. And this is for both of you. What should students do before each class in order to prepare? And sort of what is the best way, in your opinion, to prepare for each class? Professor Minneti?
Sure, I can start. So that critical reading skill that I mentioned is absolutely essential. The professors are going to assign various quantities of reading for you, and that's going to be maybe case material, perhaps a law review article, maybe provisions from a statutory code of some kind. And so your job is going to be to move through that text in a fairly rapid, efficient way, but you've got to critically read as you go. And by that I mean you think in the back of your mind as you're seeing the words on the page, what's the author's premise here? What's the purpose for me reading this text? For my trust and estate students, if I assign a case for them to read, the court that wrote the decision for many different reasons, but I've assigned the case for a very specific reason. And those readers that have that focus, that purpose for reading the case in mind, really seem to find the most important information in the text. So I think it's about a thoughtful, critical read of the information. I also think it's about doing some of what I heard both of you say, and that is learning to question the text for yourself. So it's not only about understanding what the author is trying to say, but then setting that out there and asking yourself, well, now, how do I feel about what the author has said here? Has the judge reached the right result? I wonder what my professor is going to say about this. Is this case consistent with the way I think justice ought to be afforded under the circumstances? Asking the text, essentially these kinds of questions, takes your reading to a completely different level, and it's at that level that I think you're likely to encounter conversation in the classroom. So I would encourage students to engage in that kind of thoughtful reading, active, engaged reading prior to class.
Wonderful. Professor Podgor?
I think it's so important. I agree with Professor Minneti. It's so important to have read the material before going to class. You'll get the maximum amount out of the class if you have read it critically as he explained. I think it's also important to then take notes in the class. And then after the class, to go back and reread the material that you just read before class. It'll have a whole new meaning in many instances, especially at the beginning of law school. You'll see things that you might not have seen in the first reading. It's very different from undergraduate school in that regard. In undergraduate school, you read the material, and very often then you are asked questions, and you give back the answers on an examination. In law school, sometimes there isn't a right answer. There might be, well, it could be this, or it could be that, and it's going to depend on a lot of different things that you have to examine in the process, which actually is the real world in law. That's why we have two sides in so many instances in a courtroom.
Can I follow up on that for just one more thought?
Absolutely.
And the notion of case briefing gets a lot of press, and maybe that's part of what you were thinking about when you asked that question. Those of you somewhat familiar with the law school environment have heard the phrase creating a case brief prior to class. And the reason I didn't address that directly, because I think students sort of overemphasize that. There is value to being able to parse a case out into its different components. But you'll find that when you get to your classes that professors have different ideas about how that parsing ought to take place. So I wouldn't be too worried initially about what the appropriate approach to a case brief for class might look like. And instead let your professors guide you along that path. They'll provide the information you need. Trust them with that piece.
Good advice.
And to add one more thing to what Professor Minneti said, that's so true of the real world. Judges in different courtrooms see things differently, just as professors see things differently. And one of the things at Stetson, I think you'll find, is that you'll get a lot of different perspectives. Even in the first year, you'll have different professors that approach things in different ways. And that's the real world.
Absolutely. We have a question from our audience. So the first question is, what types of books should I be reading now so that I can get ready for classes? And I know you guys get this question a lot, so I'm excited to hear your answers.
I'll let Professor Minneti
Sure.
start
So
on
I
this
would
one.
say books you enjoy.
Yes.
Just be reading. Seriously. It is about critical reading. So yeah, be in books, read stuff and enjoy those books, because frankly, you're not going to have a lot of time for pleasure reading once the fall hits. So if you really are looking for something more than though. If you look at the bibliography tab on the Academic Success Program website, we've provided an annotated bibliography with lots of great titles. And not only do we give you the titles there, we provide a paragraph or so of information about what the books have to offer you. So I would encourage you, rather than naming specific titles because people want to read different things for lots of different reasons, spend some time with that bibliography and decide maybe one or two books that are really great for you. I think that's probably the best approach. Yeah.
Professor Podgor, when we're at the beach this summer, what are we reading?
A novel.
A novel.
A novel. I think that would be a really wise move, is to just enjoy yourself this summer. To read things that you might not have the chance to do in that first semester.
Wonderful. We have another question, and that question is, what kind of summer work experience would be helpful for next year for beginning to land the 1L summer internship? Because the summers are very important in law school, and we'll talk to you in career development about how important they are. But what sort of experiences might benefit a student before coming into law school?
Start, go ahead.
One of the things I'd suggest is going down to the courthouse. Actually going to a courthouse, talking to a lawyer, sitting down, asking them about what they do, watching a case in the courtroom. I mean, getting a feel for how they pick a jury, or what are the components of a trial in a courtroom. Sitting in a lawyer's office and talking to them about what actually comes into the office, what kind of problems do they solve for people. I think that could be enormously helpful during the summer to do. I mean, if there is a local agency around that needs some volunteer work, that's a wonderful experience over the summer. And even if you're just, doing some copying or something there, you're getting to get a feel of the office and getting to know the people. And I think that could be helpful down the road.
I agree. I think watching court is one of the most valuable things that you can do in order to really see what lawyers do. And I think some of the best advice is to make very good friends with the bailiff, because the bailiff has the keys to the kingdom.
Absolutely.
And will often, I'm sure, really welcome you into his or her courtroom, and often can be a great resource because they truly see everything.
Yeah, so I think it's important you come to school without a sense of tunnel vision. So there's no one thing, that's what you hear the folks saying here, that you really should be doing this summer, because there are so many different ways to use a law degree. Some of you really may not want to practice law, you just want to have the JD credential behind you to be able to do other things. So it is about taking time this summer to get out there and see what a private firm looks like, what the public sector law looks like, and even maybe looking at in-house counsel opportunities. Some of the best things that I did early on were the notion of taking a lawyer for a coffee, just inviting a lawyer out to find out more about what their lives look like professionally and personally is so educational, really can help you get some ideas about maybe what you do want to do or do not want to do with your law degree once you finish. Those things are important for the summer, I think.
Wonderful. The next question. So we have some students who are coming to us in the fall, and we're so excited to have you, who are coming from some non-traditional backgrounds, meaning maybe they're coming from a less traditional law school background, something in the math and science field. And coming to law school will be a shift for those folks, but they're valued members of our law school community, and we're really excited to have them. But knowing that, is there anything specific that you could recommend to someone who maybe isn't coming from a more traditional liberal arts background?
Go ahead.
I think one of the most important things is just to recognize that there might not be a right answer to everything, and to sort of get comfortable with that, because in undergraduate school, you may have been taught, especially in math and science, using the scientific method to eventually get to the answer. It's not going to work quite the same way here. And so just to feel comfortable, think about issues. What might be one side of an issue? What might be another perspective? Keep an open mind to things. Learn the opposite side of the side that you're comfortable with, and feel comfortable about doing that. I think that's one of the things.
Absolutely.
One of the messages I preach there is that the answer is the argument. Now, I don't mean the kind of argument that you might have with a spouse or significant other. Here I'm talking about legal argument, of course. Yes. And the answer to any legal question is simply being able to explain law and apply law given the facts that you've been provided. So what that says to a math and science person is drawing upon what Professor Podgor has already mentioned with the scientific method. I majored in virtually everything as an undergrad and took a lot of biology and wrote a lot of have lab reports, right? And so the lab reports, I know that the conclusion, the results section was very important to that report, but the professors were also interested in the process that I employed to get to that result. And that's the meat, that's the heart of what you're going to do during your first semester. So if you can think about law, frankly, from a scientific perspective, where the focus is on the method for how you got to the result that you reached, then you're in the space that I need you to be in to be able to make that transition happen. In fact, if you think about the way we teach law now, it is a very scientific, sort of formulaic approach to thought, to argument. It is rooted in the syllogism, a major premise, a minor premise, and a conclusion, which is a throwback to the scientific method, frankly. So those math and science folks out there, don't be too concerned as long as you can help find a way to communicate the method, the thought process you employ to get to your conclusion, you'll be fine. I think the other thing I would emphasize is that for those folks that have taken most of their assessments by multiple choice, you're going to do a lot of writing here. And so one thing you may want to be thinking about is looking back on how proficient you are at expressing thought processes for yourself in writing. And that may be a skill set that you want to spend some time developing, and certainly an area that the Academic Success Office can partner with you in once you get here to campus in the fall.
And I think I'll add to that is there are so many resources on campus that'll be available to you your first semester to have these discussions and to talk about these issues. Certainly our faculty members always have an open door and love talking to students. So I would encourage you to take advantage of the opportunity to meet and get involved and build relationships with your professors in addition to the academic success team and, of course, career development. So there's so many resources available, and truly these are the discussions that you should be having your first year. We have another question, and that is, does Stetson use the Blackboard system or something similar to post the summer reading / first week assignments?
And that answer, there are a lot of different things in place for the fall. Professors have at their disposal Blackboard, a Twen product from Westlaw. We also have a faculty support office that will supply reading assignments to students. So there's a variety of ways that information gets published. If your question is concerning what happens over the summer, that information will be posted electronically, emailed to students. So you'll get access to that information through a portal system, I believe on Stetson Connect, that we have set up. Once you get here to orientation in the fall, we'll help acquaint you with the processes that you need put in place to make sure you're getting the information from your professors.
Now, I remember my orientation experience like it was yesterday, and it was wonderful. So can you talk a little bit about what students can access before orientation? And Professor Minneti, this is really for you and the Stetson Connect. And then Professor Podgor, maybe we can talk a little bit about what to expect at orientation.
Sure. So prior to orientation, we're going to gradually introduce you to what it means to study law. And that means we're going to initially just acquaint you with Stetson University College of Law, with some of the policies, procedures behind this institution. And then we're going to gradually shift your focus to what it means to learn as a law student. And we'll provide some resources for you, some cases, a law review article that you're going to read. We'll also give you a little bit of instruction about how to go about critically reading that information. We'll provide some content about the U.S. legal system. If you've never really taken a lot of government-like courses, we'll help you get up to speed on just how law is made in the United States, since that's what you're going to be learning when you get here in the fall. So it's a three-stepped, phased-in process where the information begins rather general, and then with each step becomes more and more specific, so that by the time you arrive on campus in August for your on-campus orientation, you will know pretty well how to critically read a legal text, and you'll also have a fair understanding of how to go about making some legal argument with regard to that text. I do want to point out one other resource that you could take advantage of if you want to get ahead of what we're going to provide through orientation. Right now, on the Academic Success Program webpage, you have access to a variety of presentations covering topics such as what study aids might I take advantage of? How do I take notes in a law school classroom? I've heard about law school outlines. What do those look like? Those videos are up and ready for you to look at any time that you want to take a look. So feel free to dive in.
And I think those are all on Stetson Connect, right? Good. The team out there is telling me all of this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful. And Professor Podgor, let's talk a little bit about orientation. I know it's something that students are anticipating. It's the first time you'll be on campus together as a class. What should students expect?
I think students should expect that they need to be prepared for orientation. They'll be receiving the assignments, you have to read them, and you have to come in to that classroom having read the material, because the professor is going to just automatically expect that you have read it and we start at a high level of a discussion. So for example, one of the classes I sometimes do for orientation is a mock class, where we actually do a modified Socratic method about one of the law review articles that you're asked to read.
Wonderful. And I can tell you from personal experience, orientation was a great time to finally get to see my classmates. And I know some of you have had the opportunity to interact with each other already, which is really incredible. So we encourage you to sort of build those relationships now. And when you get here, you can really hit the ground running and getting to know your classmates, because I can assure you they will be with you for a very long time, well into your career. So I'm very excited to welcome you all here to orientation as well. So I think that we have some more questions. I've heard that former students share outlines. Is this something that I should use to prepare for classes? Professor Podgor, I will start with you.
I'll certainly take that one. I recommend against it. And the reason why I recommend against it, I think part of the learning process is doing it yourself. You actually really learn the material by taking your class notes, taking the reading materials, and formulating it into an outline that is your outline, that's written in your sort of, the way you think. And it's the way you're going to remember it, and it's going to be the way that you actually will think back about it when you're in an exam. So, I mean, I think sometimes it's okay to look at the material to make sure that you have everything there. I'll also be honest, there are a couple of criminal law outlines on the web that I've looked at, and some of them are not accurate. So I'd avoid it unless you are absolutely certain that it is accurate.
Professor
Yeah,
Minneti?
I agree with that. And, I think for those of you that are struggling for what an outline of a course should even look like, perhaps looking up an older former student's outline will at least give you a sense of what you should be thinking about creating, but it really shouldn't drive the product that you ultimately create. I think of learning as building structures, structured understandings of legal topics, and that's going to be very personal, very unique to you. So whatever the outline is that you create, it may be represented on a piece of paper or in a file saved on your computer, but it is definitely going to be an expression of your understanding of the material, infused with what the professor has provided in class. And appreciate that the law changes. Professors change casebooks, they change focuses in the class. So to the extent you're thinking you can rely on somebody else's work, you may be missing what it is the professor's trying to communicate in the current version of the class. So think about them, these former students' outlines, as a reference tool, simply to give you a sense of framework or context for what it is you should think about constructing for yourself.
And some professors actually will give you, for the first class or two, their outline for those materials that are being covered. I do that for the first, it's about 3 or 4 classes. I'll give the students what my outline would look like so that they can see and compare their outline. Are they actually getting all of the material that I'm covering? And I think there are a few professors that do that here.
Wonderful. We have another question, and this one reads, Professor Minneti, you mentioned there are some students who come to law school to earn a JD to pursue business or other fields that are not necessarily traditional practice of law. Can you talk a little bit about how Stetson helps students connect with internships or externships that are more business related?
Yeah, so there are many, many opportunities to do things not related to the study of law here at the College of Law. What I would invite you to do is look at the clinic and internship opportunities available on Stetson's webpage. You'll see that they are diverse, they are many, and they are varied. One of the ones that stands out for me, based on your question, is the in-house counsel internship. This is a placement that's run by one of our faculty members, and she has incredible corporate entities, partnerships, just a wide array of employers out there where she places students that have on-the-ground, in-the-trenches experiences with employers using the law degree in a non-traditional way. I've know of students that have been placed at USF in their NCAA compliance office. I know of others at the Home Shopping Network who work with just the HR and labor law type issues that arise in that environment. So it's There are many different ways to use that law degree. I know that one of the advantages to Stetson is the JD MBA program. So for those students that are pretty convinced that the traditional courtroom practice of law is not what they're interested in, and instead want to go a more transactional corporate type route, the JD MBA also provides additional opportunity to use the law degree in a non-traditional way. I think the reason that's so valuable is because a lot of employers out there, whether they're law related or not, recognize that what law school empowers people to do is to think creatively, critically about how to solve problems, whether those problems are law related or not. And that's why lots of different employers are very interested in the JD credential. So I hope that answers.
And I would add that if you are a student who is seeking to have maybe a less traditional career path through your JD, and I think that's one of the beauties of the JD is that you can do a lot of things with your law degree, that you absolutely come into the career development office very early to develop a personal strategy for you, because we see this as a trend. There are a lot of people who are using their law degrees in lots of creative ways, and we love working with those students, and we look forward to working with you as well. I want to make sure if I've missed anything. I think I've gotten, so I have a couple of more. What has been, and I'll just sort of change it up a little bit. What is your favorite part, Professor Podgor, about being at Stetson? And what would you share with students is something that makes us very unique from all of the schools that you have attended?
Okay. From all the schools, and I've taught at a lot of schools also, by far, the thing that makes Stetson the best is its students. We have students who come from very professional type backgrounds. In other words, it's really important to us ethics and professionalism here at Stetson. In all my time here, I have never seen a student who would rip something out of a book to disadvantage another student. I mean, what I have seen is somebody who lost their notes, it's a student helping them out. And I think that makes the atmosphere here. It's a close atmosphere. The faculty doors are open. I have lunch with all of my criminal law students, and you get to know the students. And I think that's the environment we want to have here. One of the things when I went to law school they used to say is, look to your right, look to your left, somebody's not going to be there. We take the exact opposite approach here. We say, look to your right, look to your left, make sure you get to know them while you're in law school, because that's going to be the individuals you're going to practice law with. And maybe if one of them becomes president of the United States, they'll appoint you to the Supreme Court.
That would be wonderful, wouldn't it?
Yes. So it is about, building off what Professor Podgor has said, it's about the relationship, right? I think that's one of the most valuable things to me at the College of Law. When I think about the years that I've been here, it's over 10 now. And the students that I've had just the privilege to work with that still stay in touch with me and I with them. I think about the faculty I get to work with, the staff. I mean, there are relationships with people here that I treasure. I am better because I am here among a very skilled group of people. And so from the College of Law, you're going to get substantive knowledge, but truth be told that the law is going to change. Now, you're going to learn how to learn the law, and that'll carry you through many, many situations. But the most significant thing you're going to acquire are a set of relationships with faculty, students, staff, and those are going to be the things that you really draw upon each day in practice. So my most valuable asset, I think, is the relationships that I'm able to build.
Excellent. Yep. We have another question. What is a resource that we should take advantage of next year that some first-year students may overlook? I think it's a great question.
Can I start?
Sure.
This will sound funny, but you're professors.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know why it is. You come here and you know our professors are fantastic. You can see the things that they've published, and when you see them on the first day of class, you're going to just be so engaged in what they have to say. But students are so apprehensive about going to talk with them. You hear the open door policy preached, but they won't go in. So unfortunately, students overlook that. Don't. You get to know these folks. You just heard me talk about relationship, right? We are here as professors because we've committed to building relationship with you. So the invitation's open. Seize upon it. You'll find that those professors have so much to offer, especially early on in the law school career. They know what it's like to be a first-year law student. They have advice that they can provide on an individual basis once they get to know you that they probably couldn't collectively to the group. So take the time to get to know your professors.
Professor Podgor.
One additional thing is, in the first year, you take legal research and writing. And one thing that students sometimes don't recognize is we have all kinds of resources for them right on the web. For example, we have the Advocacy Center, and every student at Stetson is entitled to use all of the advocacy materials online for free. And you can go online and learn how to do an oral argument before you have to do that oral argument in your research and writing class. If there's an opening statement competition, you can go on, and we have tapes that tell you how to do an opening statement. We have some examples of opening statements, and there are just an enormous amount of resources. And it always amazes me sometimes that students miss that sometimes. So that's the one thing I would bring out. Our Advocacy Center is just incredible here.
It truly is, and so are our professors. Another question we have is, do we have the same research and writing professors for fall and spring?
That has evolved over the years, and the way it currently stands, you're going to have some choice there. Research and writing 2 professors, second semester professors, some of them will specialize on a specific area of research and writing. For example, international law, or maybe distributional justice is their focus. If you prefer that as a topic for your second semester of research and writing, that happens to be the same professor you had for the first semester of that can happen. Now, if you prefer somebody else, you can make that choice as well. And I think that decision is driven by each student's individual needs. There's certainly some merit to having different professors each semester, because as Professor Podgor has already said, your legal readers are different and will have different expectations of you. So you need to learn as many of those different expectation sets as you can while you're in law school.
And I think that's one of the very unique things about Stetson is we do give that choice in the second semester. I mean, I've had students they come in, they know they want to do environmental work, and they can take a research and writing course in the environmental area or the international area, or in technology in the law is one of the offerings we have. And it's wonderful you really learn the same skills no matter which class you're in, but it's nice to be able to use the materials that you're going to use perhaps later in life.
I agree. I think it's a great addition to our curriculum. Do we have any tutoring or mentoring programs for first-year students? Professor Minneti?
Yeah, we have a couple of things in place. One of the things you'll learn about through the orientation materials this summer and in the fall are academic success workshops. Across the fall semester, there'll be at least 4 workshops made available to you to help you understand some of the academic skills that will help you be successful in class and on exams. In addition to that, we have a more formalized mentorship program set up through our Stetson ambassadors. These folks do a terrific job of helping you understand how to transition into law school from lots of different perspectives, and among them are academic perspectives. This past spring semester, we actually began a pilot program working very closely between Stetson ambassadors and the Academic Success Program on a mentorship program that we are looking to more fully develop in the fall. So watch for that to happen, and I invite you to participate in that if you think a mentorship or tutorial type relationship may be helpful to you.
In addition, I'll also talk about our ambassadors for just a moment, a wonderful group of student leaders on campus who you will get the opportunity to meet at orientation, and they also will match you up, and you'll be paired with an ambassador who you can ask a lot of questions to about what life is like as a first-year student and so forth. So that's another resource on campus that we would encourage you to take advantage of, because those folks have been through it all, and they're a great group of student leaders for sure. We have another question. Can you provide any insight as to how members of the Florida Bar regard students or lawyers who come from states such as Texas or New York?
I don't know that there's any change in the regard there. I don't know that there's any bias against folks from Texas or New York at all. The bar has got an interesting reputation, right? And it's really, I think, the reputation of the bar is changing with time. Professor Podgor mentioned a few things that are important to us at Stetson: professionalism, ethical development, right? We are raising up a culture of lawyers here that, regardless of who opposing counsel is, where opposing counsel is from, they're going to be treated with civility. There's going to be a collegiality among the bar. And yes, it's an adversarial proceeding, and there are certainly clients' interests at stake, and we want to make sure that the proper party prevails and all that. But that can be done with respect to professionalism and ethics. And so I don't know that you're going to have a problem if you're not a Florida resident, somehow integrating yourself into the Florida bar. That just does not seem to be a concern to me. I'll speak one more on that. And I came from Alabama to Florida. I went to law school there and then became a member of the Florida bar. And no problem whatsoever.
Professor Podgor?
The only thing I'd add is if you're going back to a different state, one of the things that I have done recently is I've done independent studies sometimes with students who are going back and are going to be practicing in a different state to give them the opportunity to learn some of those state laws while they're still here at Stetson. And so they can do an independent study and actually research a particular area of the law that they're going to go into while they're at Stetson.
For students who may be interested in serving as a research assistant or a teaching assistant for a professor here on campus, can you talk a little bit more about what they should strive to do during their first year to sort of obtain those positions, and talk a little bit about what those positions mean for each of you? And Professor Podgor, we'll start with you.
I always have research assistants, and I have a wonderful group of past research assistants. As a matter of fact, we get together every so often, all of my research assistants from years back, and we have lunch together, and they pass on information, and it's sort of a connect for all of them. One of the things the research assistants do for me is they help me. I mean, they help me actually find things that I might not have the time to find. I also have separately, on occasion, a teaching assistant that helps me with the class. Getting to know your professors is the best way to be a research assistant or a teaching assistant. Not only getting to know them, but letting them know that that's something that interests you, so that, give them your resume, tell them you have an interest in working with them. I rotate very often research assistants so that I have an opportunity to meet as many students as possible, and also to give as many students as possible the opportunity. Sometimes in the first year you might not know the professors in the upper level courses. Talk to your professor that you have in the first year. I'm sure they're happy to make that introduction for you.
I think the key is to definitely talk to those professors. Professor Minneti?
And just to speak to the value of that relationship, all right, I'm all about the relationship today. Sorry, that's what you get.
I love
it.
But
the teaching research assistant thing is just a fantastic way to deepen a relationship with the professor, because you get that one-on-one contact. You get to work collaboratively potentially if there are other research assistants. So it's a fantastic device. With academic success and bar prep, I usually draw upon teaching assistants. I teach large courses, and those teaching assistants help me in a variety of ways. Oftentimes they're helping me make sure that I'm current on the law by checking statutes to see if there are any additions to them or case law that maybe overturned portions of the statutes. They're frequently helping me with ungraded exercises in class, developing practice questions for students. They will provide feedback on students' responses for me, and on occasion they'll lead review sessions for quizzes that are happening during the course of the class. So I rely heavily on teaching assistants, and it's a great thing for both of us, because those students learn much more about the material as a teaching assistant than they ever did as a student in the course, and for me it just makes my job easier, more efficient.
Wonderful. Well, our next question, I enjoy this a lot. We know we have a lot of students coming from really all over the world to come to Stetson in the fall. And again, we're just thrilled to have you. But are there any resources that we have that help students acclimate to a new city, such as great restaurants? And we know that the St. Pete area has been getting a lot of press lately about our wonderful cuisine, and we're very excited about that. But also things like where to get your hair done, and my question was always, where do I get my suit altered? So what sort of resources would be available? I know I would recommend that students really take advantage of their ambassadors, truly, because the ambassadors, again, they've been here now for at least a year and a half, and can give you the lowdown on some of the great restaurants in Gulfport and St. Pete and Tampa and Clearwater and Sarasota and all of our surrounding communities. And I think you can just ask anyone on campus if you like their hair, where do they get it done? I travel quite a bit for mine, and will continue to do so.
Yep. The ambassadors was
Yes.
the other thing. The ambassadors work with the Office of Student Life here,
Yeah.
and that is it is a fabulous resource for students. If you've toured campus, you know that's the office that's above the pool, above the gym area, and so if you have a question like that, there are folks in that office that will help you get to the answer. So ambassadors, the Office of Student Life, that's what I would suggest to students.
We all go,
You
Professor
know,
Podgor.
I'd agree on that also.
Yeah.
And also there are many places locally that give discounts for the students.
Absolutely.
I know, for example, the local cleaners,
Yes.
gives a Stetson discount.
Absolutely. No, I think you'll find this community really, really does support our Stetson students, and we always love when they're able to give a discount. So we'll give you the lowdown on that too. And while you're up at Student Life, Career Development is just down the hall, right above the gym,
Shameless
right next to
plug.
the pool. So make sure you stop by and see us too. And what we do often, which I actually love, is students often have a question: can I wear this to an interview? Can I wear this when I'm meeting an attorney for coffee or going to this internship? And we love offering fashion advice about what to wear because it is really very important. Professor Podgor, you host some dinners every once in a while.
I do.
Can you talk about that for a minute?
Sure. I did one this week, as a matter of fact. I don't know how many students over for dinner at my home. It was the Jewish Law Students Association, and it was Passover. And so we invited any student who didn't have a place to go for Passover to come on over to the house and join my family and myself, and we had other people from the community. Somebody from our board of visitors came in also, and one of our alums was there. And it was
wonderful.
just a wonderful evening. We had a great time.
And I know some student organizations also for the Thanksgiving holiday will do like a student organization potluck for anyone who's staying in town to come and enjoy a nice hot meal, hopefully home cooked. Which leads me to my next question, which is, what are your thoughts about getting involved in student groups and student organizations? Stetson has a lot of student organizations. What is your advice about getting involved your first year?
I would say quality over quantity. I do encounter students that think they have to be a part of every organization because they're trying to build a resume or they just like being involved. There are going to be a lot of demands on your schedule. And the first year, your academic performance is really important. It's significant. So I think school takes top priority. But I really know research suggests that students that are engaged on campus activities, student organizations, actually outperform those that focus on school alone. So my advice to you during the first year is choose one organization to really get yourself involved with, to start building relationships with, and then let the focus of your time be upon school. You'll have years 2 and 3, or if you're a part-time student, year 4, to look at officer opportunities or maybe to look at some other student organizations. But I would narrow your focus some during that first year.
Professor Podgor.
I agree with Professor Minneti on this. I think it's so important to be careful about it the first year. The first year, you really have to focus on the studies, but on the other hand, you need to have a little outlet and some fun too.
Absolutely.
And there are so many activities, and the speakers that come to campus here are just amazing, and sometimes they're related to your class. So being involved in the organization, going out and having lunch on campus, free lunch, and listening to the speakers, it's a regular thing here. It really is. And it's wonderful to be a part of that. And faculty participate in that, students participate, and it's the kind of thing sometimes where you just have to RSVP that you're going to be there, and it's great. But I would be careful, especially that first semester.
Yes, but do get involved. If I could just say one more thing about that, because admission to Stetson is a selective process. There are attributes of you that are unique, and part of this reciprocal relationship is we're going to give to you our very best. We need your very best. You will enrich our legal community. You will make us better by getting involved. So, choose that one organization or 1.5 during your first year. But by all means, get involved because we need you. We invited you to campus so that you would. We need your participation here to be the best that we can be for this community.
And I'll say from a career development perspective, I agree with the quality over quantity. Employers want to see your involvement in campus, outside of campus, for sure. But again, listing every student organization is probably, you really want to just develop some leadership skills in 1 or 2 organizations that really speak to who you are and what's important to you. So I think that was all really great advice. We have a couple of more questions. Do classes meet 3 days a week or 2 days a week?
And Go ahead.
It varies.
I was going to say the lawyer answer. It depends.
It depends,
It
yes.
depends.
Some of the classes do meet 3 days and some meet 2 days. And it depends on the course. It depends on whether the course is a 3-credit course, 4-credit. In the first year, the courses are 4 credits for the first semester. So everything pretty much, even though some of them are occasionally 3 days, most of them are going to be 2 days a week.
And what are summer semesters like at Stetson? We talked a little bit about how the summers are very, very important while you're in law school, but talk about that a little bit,
They
Professor
are.
Minneti.
So if you choose to be involved in classwork over the summer, you're going to be likely looking at a slate of courses that are primarily skills driven. And by that I mean we've got a whole slate of classes that are focused on helping you have the kind of lawyering skills you need to be effective with in practice. So interviewing and counseling, negotiation mediation, trial advocacy, appellate practice, pretrial practice are the kinds of courses that are really focused on in the summer to help you acquire that skill set that you may be able to take into practice in other semesters. Part of the reason we do that is our summer semester is shorter, and so rather than emphasizing heavy doctrinal courses that would have you moving through many pages of material in a short period of time, we prefer to be on the skill side where the emphasis is on that skill package. And summer semesters are not something that you have to do in an academic sense. So it may be that instead you choose to go back to wherever you're from and spend the summer getting involved in some local public interest law firms, doing some of the things we talked about initially that might even be good for this first summer, visiting that courthouse. Those can be very effective things to do during the summer. Don't feel that enrolling in classes is something that is essential. For many of you, it may not be a good idea at all to take classes during the summer. It just depends on the student.
Some students like to travel the first
Right.
summer too. I mean, we have some wonderful opportunities in our international program in many different countries. I had a wonderful summer one time teaching at The Hague. We actually went and watched Charles Taylor testify in court, and then we came back and we studied it in the classroom. So there's a lot of different opportunities. And once you get to know the professors, talk to them about the different opportunities. They'll be very helpful to you, I think.
I think the most important thing is to have a plan for that first summer, and that planning begins very, very early in law school. So again, Career Development Office is always here to help you, and we look forward to helping you build that plan in collaboration with Academic Success, with our amazing faculty for sure. We talked a little bit about the skills classes, but one question that I want to ask is, for students who may not at this point be very comfortable with public speaking, understanding that that is something that we teach students how to do very well. What are some things that students might consider doing over the summer to help maybe overcome some of those fears or maybe ease that transition? Professor Minneti?
Yeah, so I like organizations like Toastmasters.
Yeah.
They're civic-based organizations that give you an opportunity to engage in some public speaking. I would also look around at other organizations that you may be involved with. A lot of faith-based organizations have opportunities for people to participate in group meetings, to lead a meeting, or to get up and actually speak to the group. Having those opportunities, I think, is important. You'll find where your strengths and weaknesses are for public speaking, and those experiences can help you refine those things. And I would also say that, public speaking is a thing that definitely does not come naturally for me. Maybe that's obvious to you. I don't know. But over time, right, you explore different opportunities. You develop sufficient security to take risks, and that can be a powerful thing. And one more thought before I move off the topic, and that is that there are lots of ways to practice law. For some of you, you really would prefer that patent office practice where you're really doing research and writing throughout the course of the day, and that's satisfying and fulfilling to you. That is a viable way to practice law. You don't have to be the person in front of the group leading the conversation. You can be the person that's diligently getting the work done and be very effective.
Professor Podgor, in a couple of moments, we're going to have to let you go so that you can teach, which is something you do remarkably well. So any parting thoughts before we excuse you, and then we'll talk a little bit about the bar application in just a moment.
The one thing I would say is I'm really looking forward to meeting all of you soon. The Stetson students are what makes this place, our alumni. Everything about Stetson is what you are and what you bring to Stetson. And I am just delighted to get to know you in the upcoming months, and being a part of your life and having you as a part of my life, and building Stetson, because we're a great place. So thank you.
Perfectly well said. Thank you, and enjoy class this evening.
Thank you.
One thing I want to ask, or one question before, and then we will turn to the bar exam. How does Stetson help students perform pro bono work? That's a mouthful this evening. Pro bono work. How do we help students perform?
Yeah, so you probably have heard that there is a pro bono requirement associated with graduation here, and it's a 60-hour requirement. We take pro bono seriously. Of that 60 hours, 30 needs to be legal related. We have folks in place here that will help make available to you pro bono opportunities. We have folks in place who will help you track the pro bono hours that you're responsible for. So I think it's drawing upon the resources that you'll learn about when you get onto campus. The thing I hear most from students is not that they don't know how to go about doing it or who to ask. It's just that they don't get it done in a timely way. So my strong suggestion is you'll learn how to go about doing it, and you'll find we have great resources to get it done. Just do it. You're going to build fantastic relationships, have great experiences, and I don't know, it may open your eyes to a practice area that you really hadn't thought about beforehand. So I look forward to hearing from you all about your pro bono experiences.
They really are amazing experiences that you'll have on campus, and probably career direction changing in some cases. So we encourage you to get those done. One thing I do want to talk about, which I think is really, really important, and some things that maybe folks can do now before coming into law school, and that's getting ready for the bar application. Sure. So in order to sit for a bar exam, you'll have to apply to do that. And in Florida specifically, that requires a lot of preparation. So Professor Minneti, can you talk about that a little bit, about some things that students might do now?
Sure, and I'd like to even back up one step further. Even if you don't think that you're going to take the Florida bar at this point, you should submit an application to the Florida bar, because doing so will empower you to become a certified legal intern, which enables you to really take full advantage of our clinics and internships as you progress through law school. So again, whether you're going to sit for the Florida bar, if you're not sure, I don't care, file the application. Now, it is a 72-page application. So you may have thought law school applications were time consuming. This one's a bear.
It's a doozy.
It's going to ask a lot of information about you, your demographics, where you've lived, where you've worked, where you've been to school. If you're a second career student like I was, you probably have worked for a variety of employers and lived in lots of addresses. Now is not a bad time to begin consolidating that information. So what I would strongly encourage you to do is get a clear sense of employment history, get a clear sense of your addresses, past addresses. There are questions related to finances, related to previous litigation, related to arrests, convictions, and tickets that you may have gotten from law enforcement people. So if there are details associated with those things that you need to collect, assemble, get that information together, because you'll find that the opportunity for you to submit that application is going to come up, the deadline is going to come up in January after your first semester. And although you have some time perhaps at Christmas break to do some work on the application, if you can put some pieces together now, I think it would really help you. I think the other thing I'll have to say there is that we're going to provide some resources to you in the fall to help get that application process started. A member of the Florida Board of Bar Examiners will come to campus and speak with you about preparing that application, and the Office of Academic Success and Bar Prep also provides a speaker that will answer your questions about how to move through that process. I can't underscore the importance of taking this thing seriously and getting it done by that January 15 deadline.
The Career Development Office and the Academic Success are united on that front. That is a very important application to get done on time. Well, we have a few minutes left, and so one thing I would like to be able to share with you are some things from a career development perspective that you should consider doing over this summer. And a couple of those things include this advice was given to me during my orientation by Dean Radwan, who's a wonderful professor on campus, and I know you'll be excited to meet her. But she said, don't dump the date that brought you to the dance. And that is such important advice. All of you have made it to this point with the help of some pretty fantastic people. And you should, at this point, thank them for that, and then keep in touch with them, and then vow to give them updates about life in law school, because you're going to get very busy here when you start school, and everyone around you will be supportive and understanding of that. But it's important to keep those folks connected to you. because they will be great resources as you leave law school and begin your law school career. Other great tools for that include writing them a thank you note. Additionally, LinkedIn is a fantastic resource that so many members of our profession are utilizing. So we encourage you to explore it, to be very intentional about it, and to be very proactive on that, to connect with people who you'll want to update as you do very well in law school. And connect with your classmates. That's really, really important. And just be intentional. That was some of the great advice that I received. You're going to have a lot of opportunities here at law school. Be strategic and be intentional about the choices that you make while you're here, and set some really strong goals for yourself. We're so excited to welcome you to our campus in August, and we encourage you to come visit us over the summer. We're all here, and we really look forward to working with you. And we're really happy that you joined us today, and hope you found this to be valuable. You're going to see some information come up about how to contact us if you have more questions. We're fading out now. So thank you so much. Have a great summer, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you for watching Stetson Law Live. For more information, send us an email or give us a call. For your convenience, our contact information will remain on screen for the next few minutes. Be sure to check our homepage often for news, information, and updates. Thanks again. We look forward to hearing from you soon.